Imagine a family where blood should be the most sacred bond, where unconditional love would be the rule. But what about this same blood turns into poison, and the ties become chains? This is the story of a man who has discovered, at the cruel moment, that sometimes we need to lose everything to achieve what really matters. It was a day that should be celebrated. The youngest daughter, the favorite, came home with her first grandson in her arms, wrapped in smiles and hugs. While the proud father toasted to the future of the family, the eldest son, always on the sidelines, shyly held a gift for his niece, a silver spoon and a teddy bear. No one noticed. After all, why waste time who was already condemned to oblivion? Maxim grew up listening that he was not the son his father dreamed. While the sister, since she was a child, embodied the ambition and determination that Eugenio Timofeevich admired so much, he was just the dreamer, the failed, the one who preferred books to trophies. Even with a red diploma in economics, their achievements were received with a mere is the least. The father does not hide the disdain, theory does not fill belly. Show results. At 23, still living with her parents, Maxim worked as an analyst, saved every penny and helped at home. But for Eugenio, that was nothing more than comfort. A real man builds his own way, he repeated, while his sister, married to a successful executive, received praise and promises of financial aid. The drop of agua came at the welcome dinner of the granddaughter. The father announced that he would sell the family's dature legacy of his grandfather to enter an apartment for his daughter's couple. "And me?" asked Maxim. The answer was a sharp disdain. "Why do you need a dacha? You don't even know how to hammer a nail." The next morning, the verdict was relentless. His things were packaged in a backpack thrown at the door. "Enough of supporting parasite," growled his father, kicking his belongings out of the apartment. "Go learn to be a man. Rent a corner like everyone else." The mother was crying, but Eugenio was irreducible. "At her age, I already kept a family. He only knows how to read and dream. That he knows the real life." Maxim left without looking back. There was no anger, just a void that, over time, would turn into fire. In the following months, he survived in a borrowed corner, working by day as an analyst and night as an application driver. "I slept 3 hours, ate noodle, but never stopped studying. Financial analysis courses, investment management, everything that could turn him into the professional that his father never believed he would be." 3 years later, the man who entered the real estate door had nothing to do with the young insecure expelled from home. Skinny, well-groomed, impeccable costumes and an impressive curriculum, Maxim now headed the analysis department of a large investment company. His salary was 4 times larger than the first vacancy, and every penny saved had one purpose: the entrance of his own apartment. When he finally signed the papers of those 70 square meters, 3 bedrooms, integrated kitchen, porch overlooking the park, in a noble neighborhood, I knew that this was not just a material achievement. It was proof that the father's words, instead of destroying him, had forged him. Not as any man, but as someone who turned fuel abandonment. Eugenio never apologized. The family continued as if nothing had happened, with dinners where Maxim's absence was just a detail. But he no longer needed them. Because, in the end, the greatest lesson was not about money or success, but about the power to reinvent itself when the world insists on underestimating you. Sometimes the real home is not where you are born, but where you choose to become who has always deserved to be. 15-year-old financing did not scare him. Maxim saw BIA that, with his current income, would settle the debt long before the deadline. The day he received the keys of the new apartment was one of the happiest of his life. He toured every empty room, imagining the furniture that would occupy those spaces: a king-size bed in the bedroom, bookshelves in the office, a comfortable sofa and a TV in the room for the rare moments of rest. At night, he called his mother. "Mom, I bought an apartment." Galina Alexandrova's voice overflowed genuine pride. "Maximushka, how I rejoice for you. When can I see?" "Come tomorrow," he answered. "It's still empty, but we can plan everything together." He didn't ask her not to tell her father. He knew that anyway, she would tell. The next day, while preparing to receive his mother in the new home, he heard the doorbell touch the door of the rented apartment that had not yet vacated. As he opened, he came across his father, Svetlana, her husband, Oleg, and the little 4-year-old Alice. "Son," exclaimed Eugenio Timofeevich, with a forced heat in his voice. "We decided to pay you a visit. Your mother said you bought an apartment." Maxim remained silent, observing the unexpected visitors. In 3 years, his father had visibly aged, the white strands multiplied, the wrinkles deepened. Svetlana, by contrast, radiated the vitality of a young mother, while Oleg held a bulky sports bag. "We're so happy for you," the sister crowned, hugging him. "Mom said it's 3 bedrooms. How wonderful." Maxim let them enter, still without pronouncing a word. The father gave him a span on his back. "That boy. I always knew you would go around. I just needed a little push." Oleg put the bag on the floor and reached out. "Apartment cool, brother. Perfect for us." It was then that Maxim recovered his voice. "For you?" Svetlana smiled, as if the question was rhetorical. "It is clear. We live with our parents, it's getting tight. Dad said you bought one of 3 bedrooms. It's fate. Alice needs her own space, and you can stay in another room." The third turns office for Oleg, he works hard in home office. A wave of fury rose through his spine. 3 years of deprivation, clear nights, every penny saved with blood. And now they showed up, as if everything was due to him. "Did you lose your head?" he whispered, contained. Eugenio Timofeevich frowned. "What is it, son? We are family. You won't live alone in 3 bedrooms, will you?" "Yes," I cut Maxim. "This is my home. I will pay her in 15 years. We help you with half the installments." Oleg, enthusiastic. "How long?" asked Maxim, cold. "A month, 2, and then?" The answer was already written in the air. First would be the tuition of Alice's school, then the family's holidays, so a loan that would never be returned. "No. I've seen how your help works." Svetlana inflated her cheeks, offended. "Max, don't you want to help your own sister? We have a daughter. And where were you when your father kicked me home the day you brought this daughter from the hospital?" He countered. "Did you call once in these 3 years? Did you ask how I was?" Eugenio Timofeevich's face darkened. "What tone is this? I just wanted your good. If it wasn't for me, you would still be sucking your parents' blood." Maxim laughed, bitter. "Of course. Now that I have won everything alone, you are ready to love me again, as long as I give up what is mine." He walked to the door and lasted it. "Get out," he finished. "You don't have the courage to expel your own father." "Ruju Eugenio." "Yes, I have," answered Maxim, serene. "Just as you had the courage to expel your own son. Remember? Enough to support parasite." Alice, scared, squeezed against her mother. Svetlana crying. Oleg tried to mediate, with a forced smile. "Listening, brother, need not be so. How about you come to live with us? We pay you a rent." It was the drop of water. Maxim grabbed Oleg's bag and threw it into the hallway. "Out of my house. Now." When they are finally gone, Svetlana in tears, the fury father, Oleg stunned, Maxim slid down the floor and covered his face with his hands. There was no triumph in that scene, just a painful emptiness. An hour later, the mother arrived. I already knew everything. Eugenio had called to tell his distorted version of the facts. Galina Alexandrova hugged him hard. "Forgive us, Maxim. Your father missed 3 years ago, and missed today too." They went to the new apartment together. She toured the empty rooms, stroking the walls, peering through the window. "What a clarity, and the view is beautiful. You are amazing, son." They sat in the windowsill, with cups of tea from the thermometer, and talked as they had not done for years. The mother confessed, Eugenio had always been authoritarian, but in recent times he had become unbearable. Svetlana and Oleg manipulated him, extracting concessions, space, money. "After you left, they not only occupied their room but they took part of ours with your father. They say Alice needs space to develop. My things are now in the hall." Maxim heard and understood. The mother was also a victim of that toxic cycle. "And you?" he asked suddenly. "Don't you want to live away from them?" Galina Alexandrova looked at him, surprise. "Like this?" I have 3 rooms. One will be yours. I was already thinking where to put your favorite dresser, the one with the photos. The tears ran down her face. Maxim hugged her by the shoulders. Decide, mother. You are almost 60 years old. The time has come to live for itself. I have a good job. I pay everything. You visit the granddaughter when you want. A week later, Galina Alexandrova moved. Eugenio set a monumental scandal, but failed to demise it. In the new home, Maxim prepared for her a cozy room with a private bathroom. And the mother flourished, rejuvenated, enrolled in swimming, began taking English classes. Eugenio, alone with Svetlana, Oleg and Alice, soon felt the weight of that coexistence. High fights, children's tantrums, constant requests for help. Without Galin to cook, clean or appease conflicts, everything crumbly. In 2 months, he called his ex-wife, begging him to return. No, Genia, she answered, calm down. I lived 35 years for you and your children. Now I want to live for me. Maxim watched his mother gain independence, confidence, and rejoiced for her. They spent nights talking, went to the theater, traveled on weekends. Relations with his father and sister followed tense, but he set non-negotiable limits. No manipulation, no guest visit, no requirement. A year later, Svetlana called, asking for help. She and Oleg needed the entry to a financing. Maxim stumbled but imposed his conditions. He would lend the money through receipt, with a clear return schedule. Don't you trust your own sister? Protested. I trust, he replied. But I prefer clarity when it comes to money. Svetlana had no choice but to accept. Bought the apartment, and gradually the relationship between brother and the relationship with Svetlana began to rebuild itself, brick by brick. Meanwhile, Evgeny Timofeyevich, alone in those empty rooms that once echoed orders and rebukes, began to wither. The diseases arrived like waves, first a stubborn flu, then a weakness that was not passed, until visits to the hospital became routine. Maxim did not hesitate. It appeared without warning, carried medicine, marked consultations with the best experts, sat beside the bed with patients that the father himself had never shown. Until, on a grey afternoon, when Evgeny could barely lift the pillow's head, his eyes, once so hard, filled with something ashamed. Forgive me, son, he murmured, his voice broken as glass. I was wrong. I've always been. Maxim looked at those hands that once pushed. It's out of the house, now shaking over the blanket. There was no more the man who dictated rules with a look, nor the uncompromising patriarch who has been reducing the value of others for salaries and titles. It was only one fragile old man whose even late words weighed more than any excuse in time. I know, Dad, he replied, without grudge. And I've forgiven you for a long time. 5 years. 5 years since that backpack kick, from the door knocking on his face like a verdict. 5 years when the failed who had been expelled from home became the man who now signed millionaire contracts, who chose furniture for an apartment overlooking the river, who planned a future next to a woman who looked at him as if he was the answer to something she didn't even know looking for. His mother, finally free from the oppressive climate of the old house, flourished by her side, laughed more, cooked her favorite dishes, told stories of the past without the weight of fear. And Evgeny? I would never admit aloud, of course. But on Sunday's dinners, when he watched his son negotiate with the same firmness with which he once argued with him, or when he saw the framed diplomas on the living room wall, something shone in his eyes. It was not envy. It was the silent pride of those who, even against their own will, helped to forge that steel. Sometimes, at night, while the kettle squeaking and the smell of black tea spread throughout the kitchen, Maxim allowed to return to that cold morning. He remembered the weight of the backpack hitting the floor, the feeling that the world collapsed. Today, however, that moment did not hurt. On the contrary, it looked like the first sigh after a too-deep dive. You know, Mother, he said once, turning the cup between his fingers, maybe I should thank the father for that kick. Without him, he would never have discovered what he was able. Galina Alexandrova smiled, as if she already knew he would come to this conclusion. Sometimes, my son, we lost something that we found essential to understanding that true strength was in us all the time. You were always strong. It just had no reason to prove. And it was true. That boy who had left home with empty hands had learned that the greatest riches are not measured by square meters or bank balances, but for the ability to rise and, in the process, rewrite even the stories that define us. As for Svetlana, their visits have become more frequent, always with Alice by the hand. "Look, Alice, this is her Uncle Maxim," he said, pointing to him with a mix of admiration and a veiled guilt tip. "Everything he has, one alone. Without the help of anyone. Pay attention, daughter, this is how you do it." No one else mentioned the scandal of that afternoon when Maxim had barred the entrance to his sister and brother-in-law in the new apartment, nor the harsh words exchanged at the door. Perhaps because, deep down, everyone knew, that confrontation had been the last act of an old peace. What came later, the reborn respect, the unvised excuses, the understanding that even the most injured ties can heal, was the true plot. And if anyone asked Maxim if he would change something in that trajectory, even the most painful chapters, his answer would be the same as his mother: no. Because some falls exist only to teach us how to fly.